This is part 2 of my portrait of the professor himself, which I started in the previous video. I'm currently halfway through, as you can see, inking the professor. I thought I would create the video starting from halfway through the illustration, because stippling, the stippling technique can take a really long time. It can take hours, days, or even weeks to complete an illustration. So I thought I'd start this video off halfway through. Otherwise, there wouldn't be much to see initially. Once I'd lay down the pencil and then start inking and doing all the shading, there wouldn't be much to see. So this is the reason why I'm starting halfway through. So for those not in the know, stippling is a technique, and it's a technique, and it's a process of building up an image from countless small, closely spaced dots. And it takes a great deal of patience and precision. But once the piece starts coming together, it's really rewarding. I really enjoy it. So when I'm creating a stippling piece, I apply dots of ink in various sizes and densities to create the illusion of depth and texture and tone. Each dot must be applied with care and accuracy. And this can make you sweat quite a bit sometimes, because this isn't digital. This is pen to paper. And if you make a mistake, there are no undos. I can remember a couple of years ago I was working on a piece, and right up towards the end I just wasn't happy with it. The shading was off and it just didn't look right. And I was doing this for a portrait for a client, and it just didn't look right to me. So I had to scrap it and start again. I'm sure the client probably would have been happy, but me being a perfectionist, it's if that's the way it is to me, then I'll start again. I've also spilled a whole bottle of ink about halfway through doing illustration over the illustration, and again, I'm not going to give that to the client. I'm quite happy with that, actually. The ink adds a bit of dimension to the illustration. I don't think that's going to happen. So I did swear, and I had to start again. The stippling, I think, came after a technique called pointillism, which was created by the French painter J.R.R. Instead of using ink, he used paint and paint brushes, it's a technique characterized by the use of small distinct dots. It's a bit like when you look at a printed magazine, for instance, and there's a photograph. If you get a magnifying glass, you can see that the image is made of small coloured dots, and it looks quite abstract when it's viewed through a magnifying glass. But when you stand back, it reveals the actual picture. But I use pen and ink, and I mean that I'm by no means an expert in stippling. There are amazing artists in the world that produce incredible stippling pictures that when you stand back they look like black and white photographs. It's incredible. And there's some people that use biro pens to get that effect. And yeah, I mean, if you're interested, you should do a search on Google for biro pen stippling realistic artwork. It is gobsmacking. Some of these pieces are really quite large as well, and they really do take months to do. Anyway, moving on. In my last video, I talked about how smartphones share similarities with Tolkien's One Ring. About a month ago, I was watching the extended edition of The Fellowship of the Ring, and near the beginning there's a scene where Bilbo's he's writing his book concerning hobbits as part of the Red Book, and he mislays the ring, and he's frantically searching through his pockets and rummaging through different coats and jackets that are hanging up, and getting quite stressed about it. And he eventually finds it in his waistcoat jacket pocket, much to his relief. And I just had a thought. It's like, wow, that's happened to me when I've mislaid my smartphone. It's the same kind of panic. I've been in exactly that same situation where, I've been upturning bits and pieces around the house and looking under the sofa and frantically going through coat pockets and jackets and rushing upstairs. Did I leave it in the toilet? I obviously found it in the end, but it sort of just led me to think, wow, the smartphones have become really integral to the way we interact with technology. Technology has sort of taken a grip on our lives in such a way that we don't feel whole without it. It's really impacting on our well-being. And I'm not the only one. My wife and my daughter, they both have smartphones. My son, I've seen them mislay it and get stressed about it, and it's like, wow, this realization that we carry a version of the One Ring as a smartphone in our pockets. It's it really does symbolize the extent to which technology has become integral with our lives. It's crazy, really, that with regards to the smartphone, my smartphone, I have a love and hate relationship with it. It's very similar to the One Ring. When Gandalf says to Bilbo in the Fellowship of the Ring about leaving the ring behind. I'm paraphrasing here. Bilbo says, of course I can leave the ring behind. No, but come to think of it, I don't think I can. It's it was quite stark when I was watching the film in this relationship, watching the Fellowship of the Ring, and this relationship with our smartphones and the ring is quite powerful. This ring, the One Ring, it gives you a feeling of wholeness. It makes you feel secure and safe. And it's the same thing with a smartphone as well. It makes you feel secure and safe that you can't do without it. In fact, we've put all our eggs in one basket in a way with regards to our smartphones, that our whole lives are dictated by this black rectangular piece of technology. It's got our calendar in there, our notes, our address book, sat nav, watching television. Whatever you want to do in your life, there's an app for it, basically. So it's really quite hard that to give up the smartphone, very much like the Ring. The Ring obviously hasn't got sat nav, but it's obviously got it has an incredible power over any of the individuals that find it. Look at Gollum, for instance. I guess the app within the Ring is the power of invisibility. Imagine if a smartphone could make you invisible. That would be incredible power to be sneaking around. That is the ultimate. In fact, that makes all the other apps, all apps on smartphones, quite redundant. The app of invisibility. That's all you need. It seems that the Ring gives you this feeling of wholeness. It makes you feel secure and safe, and it can make you feel powerful through its ability to make you invisible, like I said. And it distorts and exploits your mind as like a drug. The Ring has the ability to control the mind of the wearer. It's really hard to resist and very hard to let go. And it consumes the thoughts and actions of its characters that come into contact with it, just like an addiction can consume the thoughts and actions of an individual. Which leads me on to another form of addiction, and as I stated in the previous video, this addiction is power, and this specifically is about Sauron, really, and his wanting of power and his addiction to it. Because at the end of the day, we all know the feeling of wanting things to be different in the world, of wanting change, and in some people that desire is incredibly strong, and it can be all-consuming. And in the case of Sauron, Tolkien has stated that Sauron's initial goal was to bring about the stability of Middle-earth in the Second Age, after the War of Wrath in the First Age. And I quote, Tolkien says, "He loved order and coordination, and disliked all confusion and wasteful friction." So, in a way, in the process of achieving this goal, Sauron became corrupted by his own power and desire for control. He began to see that the other races of Middle-earth were inferior and sought to enslave them. And this desire for order and control eventually became all-consuming. It was an obsession, and Sauron became a tyrannical ruler, seeking to dominate and control all of Middle-earth. I think Tolkien has said that Sauron's aims at the beginning were noble. After the first stage ended, he was in an alignment with the elves, in making Middle Earth, building it back up again after part of Middle Earth was destroyed in the First Age. And after it was destroyed, the elves decided that they wanted to stay and not sail out to the west. And they had a desire of preserving their beauty and culture, and making Middle Earth a great resting place for the elves to dwell. And Sauron was still presenting himself as, in the way he looked, as fair, and he was partly in alignment with the elves to begin with. But then, as the lust for power started to build up in him, he then exploited their weakness with the proposed healing of the desolate lands of Middle-earth, and that's when he and the elves together decided to make the Rings of Power. Sauron's ultimate goal was to enslave the races of Middle-earth, including the elves, and he believed that he alone was capable of transforming the land more effectively than anyone else. To achieve this, he presented himself to the elves as Anatar, and he appeared kind of elf-like, I believe, and very fair-looking. He wasn't evil-looking or exuding darkness. And he offered them knowledge of how to create powerful rings that would give them control over various aspects of Middle-earth. But his true intention was to use these rings to enslave the elves and other races, and ultimately that's why he created the One Ring alone within Mount Doom, and it became the most powerful of all rings, and it was his intention to rule over all the others. So Sauron invested a significant portion of his own power into the One Ring, but eventually the elves discovered Sauron's true intentions, and ultimately they were betrayed by his deception. This desire for order and control eventually became an all-consuming obsession for Sauron, and ultimately that's why he created the Rings of Power and the One Ring. But towards the end, it was his undoing, as we all know, at the end of Lord of the Rings. It serves as a cautionary tale of how even the most noble of intentions can be twisted and corrupted when power is sought at all costs. The addiction to power. So, with the video after this, I shall be drawing a new character from Lord of the Rings. I'm thinking Gandalf, or possibly Aragorn. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll go from there. The most votes I will draw, and also show you the completed version of the Professor himself in the next one, as I should have finished it by then. So goodbye for now. Bye.